Hello. Awfully quiet today.
I'm getting things set up, but yeah, happy Thursday, Ron. Got Josh joined the house.
Hello.
How you been?
I've been all right. How are you?
Been okay. Thanks for the reviews on the PRs the other day. I don't think anybody has submitted a conformance in a while.
I like the project. Looks cool.
It's been a fun little side project. I need to add authorization to it next, which I think that'll get another working group to finally make some progress. All right, we're about 5 minutes after, so I guess I can go ahead and kick this thing off. Let me get a screen share going here. So first thing I threw up on the agenda, and folks had stuff. If there's things on here, I just kind of put stuff on the agenda because I hadn't seen anything else from anybody. So I figured have something to chat about. The blog post is still kind of sitting here ready to go. And I feel like we should go ahead and get this thing merged at some point here. I can also include in the chat for anybody that's missing it. Josh, this one takes after your amazing work on the blog post way back in the day. So I looked at that, add a few things, and turn that into our big 1.1 blog post of here is everything we've been doing. And I could probably pull it up with preview. So I know a lot of people have gone through pieces here and there and given a little bit of comments, but I think we're kind of to the point that any more debate on this just delaying the inevitable. We made a lot of changes since the 1.0 releases.
This is not meant in any way. I think we should remove the section at the end that talks about artifact manifest because it's like such a big chunk, and people who haven't been involved here, like in this meeting almost specifically, might not even know what that ever was.
And this was
So
one
go ahead.
This was one I added because I think there was a comment at some point in the blog post saying, hey, we need to tell people why we took that out.
Okay. Maybe at the end of the post is okay because people will stop reading, but it's just for if I'm like showing up after 5 years or whatever and being like, oh, a new version, I don't like it takes away, I think, from the what's been shipped, which is a lot, and I think you've written it pretty well. I like the term describing associations.
Well, I'm not sure if you might have been one of the people that was looking at add that comment. Was it?
Yes,
yourself?
that was me. Yeah. So basically, I think
I'm not calling you out.
no, that's okay. So there has been quite a bit of confusion around this OCA artifacts, at least in the interim, right, between 1.1 RCs, between and the RC specs. So for people who have not been following progress and they're just jumping into this, I agree with Josh's statement that maybe this adds some confusion. Maybe you want to clarify that this was added in between and we had to remove it. Maybe you can add some language there. But for people who have been following this along, because 2 years people have been following this, right? So for those people, this will come as a surprise, and we want to clarify that we did have to remove this and why it was done.
Okay. If you think it's important there for people reading it, then I'm with you. Another option could be putting that. I don't think it's worth I don't know about a blog post, but something on GitHub, being like, if you were familiar with such and such artifact manifest, this has been removed for more information. Link. So it's not included in this big announcement type post, and it's more of a, if you've been in the weeds working with the APIs. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna approve this right now, and I don't mind.
I think, Ron, one of your comments was that you like the idea of it not being in the spec repos itself. This is more commentary on the specs, and so people don't have to go looking back through GitHub issues to figure out what the heck happened with like the 999 and all that history.
Correct. Yes, this is only for that group of people.
I retract my statements. Approved.
I think people are afraid to link anybody over to the 999 PR. Too much history there. All right. There was another one that came up. I think it came from this. I think I had a comment in somewhere in here where they said, hey, let's do X, Y, and Z. And I think since then they've already changed a bunch of their examples. So I would have to go and look, find some outdated examples somewhere. And yeah, there was some effort to put manifest types and artifact types, media types at least, and artifact types that had some of these values in there. So those, what's the right term for parameters? And parameters are defined in the spec for media types, but they're in a different section of the spec. And everywhere we've done stuff, we've been a little bit kind of clear, but not clear enough that a media type doesn't include parameters. We do have one part of the code that even includes a regular expression that says this is exactly what we're looking for, but then the regular expression was broken. So I took all the different places that I saw it implemented, pointing over RFC section 4.2 and not 4.3, which is where the parameters are defined. I took all those references and just moved them all into the media type file. And so everywhere it just says, hey, follow the media type syntax. And then in the media type file, I've got a section here that just says, here's the syntax for media types. And they need to comply with the RFC following 4.2. They need to include the top level and the subtype separated by a slash without any parameters. So I feel like that's us being as clear as we can be on what we're expecting. And if that wasn't clear enough, I said, no, by the way, here's a regular expression you can use that'll match that. And then I fixed a bunch of broken tests. Because originally we put the dash in the middle of a regular expression. And when you do that, that puts a range from ampersand to caret, which includes the semicolon for the parameters. Oops.
That was a good catch, Brandon.
I made the test and none of the tests were failing. And I was racking my head on what on earth was going wrong. And then I realized right in the middle of the regular expression, there's that dash. And the dash is a valid character, but when you put in a regular expression, it turns it into a range, just like A through Z and 0 through 9. So I do have a couple of tests in here which are intended to fail that include things like revision 1.5. That might be that one. Did I do something else up here? Oh, the artifact type add parameter. I'm looking at the media type. Yeah, so each of those put a parameter on there. I expected them to fail and the test run through, and so those are failing now. So that is my proposal. I think it clears up. I've seen it from SegStore and I've heard it from the artifacts working group this past week. So people are looking to use that. And so I feel like if we want this to be in there, now is a good time to get in before this gets misinterpreted by other people. What do other folks feel about that? Are people absorbing it, or are they in violent disagreement and think that we should include parameters in the media types? Oh, take silence as everybody is still absorbing it. Or people are looking up regular expression syntaxes. Those are just much fun. Theanon, you're on this list. Any thoughts from yourself? Of course, calling people out without checking to see whether or not they're in the middle of eating lunch or other things they can't jump off mic with. All right, I will take silence as golden on that one for now, and we'll circle back. Shall we chat distribution spec stuff? Got one that's been sitting out here for a very long time that I feel like we should just go ahead and close out. And I just wanted to double check before I closed it out that there weren't people saying, no, wait, we should include that, which is they're trying to include the port number in the definition of name, and everything we do here, name is the repository name, not the registry name. So I was putting a rejection on that one, but I just wanted to double check with everybody before I go through and delete it or close it out, that there's no reason to keep this one around. Oh, the server. Anybody wants to follow along directly? Doesn't have the notes in front of you. I think part of the confusion is we in distribution spec and even image spec have never defined the reference that is defined in the distribution project. So, yeah, distribution reference. They did at least move this off into its own separate repo. But this is the format for saying image registry / repository : tag. That's not defined anywhere in OCI itself. And so I think people were looking at some of the definitions in OCI and trying to make this part of our spec. And we should probably get something in there at some point. It's not there today. But yeah, any objections before I close this one out? Or am I moving too fast and people are still reading blog post? Or am I moving too slow and everybody wants to talk about the tag API? All right, no objection? All good? All right, I checked. I heard 0 squeaks from the crowd. So moving onward, this one I just want to raise some awareness. We have a bunch of stuff in our release notes for how we roll out changes to distribution spec that talk about, I think some of this was just linting. A lot of this was linting. Some of this was, shucks, we even still have pointers over to runtime spec. I've moved a lot of those out of there though. So a lot of them was changing runtime spec to distribution spec. And importantly, there was at least one new bullet point in there that just said, hey, go update a release note on the website. And so I was sure to do that this time, but as I was looking through the steps, I was like, I remember us doing that, and we never merged this PR. So I just wanted to raise some awareness to this one. It's been sitting out for a long while. But these are our steps for how we do our releases. Proof of Mike there, that's pretty cool. Usually Mike's around, he says something is wrong with this, and then I have to go back and reformat the whole PR again. All right, everybody's being too quiet, so either they're all busy eating lunch or you're all waiting for this one. So this has only been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on a lot lately. I changed a few things since last time. So this is the tag pagination where we're trying to say you can have a link header in there. So I do specify that you're allowed to include it, may, not must. So it's allowed to be in there. If it is in there, at least must follow the RFC. And then I define if for any reason you can't return all the tags requested. And all the tags requested, if a person doesn't put any limit at all, they're requesting every tag. If someone requests 10,000 tags and you're only allowed to give it 1,000 tags, you're not allowed to, you're not able to give back all the tags returned, requested. And so in any of those scenarios, what I'm saying here is that you must return the 413 and with the error code and the tag limit exceeded in there with the OCI tag limit header. That's the thing I was looking for. And that just gives users a response that they know that they can work with that header to fall back and go to some lower limit. So these, I think, were the uncontroversial parts of everything. I think the controversial part was whether we needed to respect the fact that if a user requested it in number of responses, that the registry must include that number of responses. And right now, I'm just kind of sticking with previous versions of the spec said that you did. And so I'm just giving an opt-out from that must of, hey, if you can't do this, then you at least have an error code that you can return back with. That at least gives clients something on their side they can sort out with. So from here, everything else got moved down to implementers notes. So all the stuff that we've been back and forth with and people not necessarily in agreement of, or whether or not it should be a should or a may or whatever in the language, just got moved into an implementer note that says, hey, people implementing this, just be aware there are some registries out there that'll have limits as much as 1,000 tags. Other registries only allow 50 tags. And if you're trying to maximize your response, request without a limit. And if the registry can give you every tag, it's going to give you with every tag. If you're going to have some pagination happen at some point in there, and the registry couldn't give you everything, you're going to have one extra round trip in there to figure out what that pagination limit is. And then you'll have the header, and then you can work from there. And I put a lowercase should on this one of saying, if a client sees that link header, use that one instead of doing the last parameter and going through the results that way. Lowercase should, just an implementer note. This is not something that we're putting as a hard requirement on anybody, but just kind of a guidance of between the two. This is the one we're nudging people in the direction of. Is this non-controversial?
So if I understand correctly, the 413 only applies when the requester is using the N parameter, and we cannot satisfy that.
It is anytime a registry cannot satisfy. And so if you do not specify a limit, the assumption is that clients are asking for every tag.
Yes. So even in that case, you're saying we should return with a 413 instead of like a restricted list.
Yes, because clients don't know that that's a restricted list. And so the only way for clients to be aware they got a partial list is if they get this 413 and then are aware that that limit is in there from the registry side.
I'm wondering how that will affect existing clients who don't know how to handle this.
The hope is that it'll actually break them. That's intentional. The problem that we've been facing is a lot, specifically this come from Quay. I think other registries would see it, but Quay just has a lower limit than most registries. They're the ones that are down at around like 50 tags per request. They don't throw an error. They do cap the limit at 50. And any client that followed the previous 1.0 definition of the spec that just said, hey, if a client requests n results and you give them less than n results, or if they don't have any limit there, they're kind of assuming everything. The client doesn't know to look for a link header because it was never defined in the spec. Well, wasn't defined in the release version of the spec. I got to be careful on that one. TNon's going to call me out if I don't say it. So we never tagged a release that had the link header in there. And so clients that have implemented the spec don't know that they got a partial list. So they'll write their client, they'll test it against their repo on day one. They got 10 tags in there, everything works on their client. And then 3 months later, they realize that they've been stuck in 50 responses the whole time and haven't seen the next 200 tags that got pushed to the repo and have just been broken for all this time without being aware of it. And so the goal here is to be very clear that what you did as a client is broken on this registry, and you need to change your client to be able to work with the registry. Take care, Josh. I get your concern, Saeed, of how do we do something here that doesn't break anybody ever? Unfortunately, they're
Yeah.
broken today. They just don't know.
Well, at least if moving forward, there are not going to be any sort of confusion here.
Yeah. I mean, that has been the problem we've been trying to overcome is how do we tell clients that they're just broken, but they don't know. And they open up issues on Quay because Quay didn't implement the OCI spec, and Quay says, well, we're not going to implement it. And so they come to OCI and say, we're not going to implement your spec. Can we do something here?
There's a good reason, right? Like it's a prime suspect for DDoS. We have repos with tags in the hundreds of thousands of like in hundreds of thousands, and like just doing a tags list on that, let's say for 100 clients simultaneously can bring like a good DDoS.
So for you, does this seem workable as a solution that, hey, at least you tell the clients and they fix their client side in that case?
Mm. We'll have to think about it. I'm sorry. On the surface, yeah, like new clients who are gonna be implementing this, then there's no issue. Yeah, it's gonna be the old clients, and we'll have to like, yeah, I'll have to think about it, but yeah, I'm in agreement with you on the new clients. Like, any client who's gonna be implementing this is gonna be fine. But the old ones are gonna be breaking very badly because there are some clients who use that link header. So they're gonna be broken even though they're kind of not broken now.
So yeah, we've got the in-between clients, not the ones that have implemented our spec completely, not the ones that have implemented what we're recommending here going forward, but that have implemented what Quay's actual behavior is.
Yeah, I mean that was the actual behavior of Docker. So they've been basically implementing the actual behavior of Docker, which Quay copied. So that's how they're there.
It's a good call out because it would break me as well. I would have to do a version bump on the client side. Not sure how long it would take some of these clients to update. Hopefully not too terribly long. Hey, John, you walked right into the middle of your favorite conversation.
I was summoned.
Oh. So I tried to get rid of all the controversial parts of this. So it just says, hey, you can add a link header. We've still got this error code in here. I put everything else down as implementer's notes. So all the details about what the idea of a 1,000 tag recommended is no longer recommended by OCI is just said to clients, hey, be aware there are a lot of registries that'll take at least that many, but some have lower limits that we've seen. And then kind of gives the direction that if you're trying to get the maximum bang for your buck out of a query, to run the query without any limit. And if the registry can give you all the tags, you're going to get them all. And if the registry can't, it'll respond back with that tag limit. And then the last little bit that threw in the kind of the implementer's notes guidance kind of section here is just saying that if clients see the link header, that they should try to prefer that one over using the last parameter. None of this is binding on the bottom part. This just kind of guides for giving to clients. But the comment from Saeed is a good one, which is that we've got clients out there that have implemented the spec as it was originally written with just no link header at all. They're just looking for n number of tags. And when they get a number of tags, they know that they need to then use the last parameter and just follow through and do the pagination that way. We've got clients that are aware of the link header and they're using that. And then we might eventually have some clients that will be aware of this new 413 response. And adding this is going to break those clients with the that are in that in-between state.
Can I tell you something that's going to make you upset?
Of course you can, because I feel like that's everything, but go ahead.
I currently operate a registry that sometimes returns less than in tags, but does return a link header because there are more results.
And so
If you ask for 1,000, I might return 999 and a link header.
So why not give them a 413, tell them that it's 999 is your limit.
It's not my limit.
You have arbitrary
There-
limits you change on each
There
request.
are there are external reasons why that response may not have 1,000 tags in it.
At that point, I almost feel like we need to start changing the accept header on this thing and version this, do a hard version bump on the tag API. And then clients can just say, hey, I'm looking for tag API version 2. I know about the link header, give me the link header.
How many clients are this way that you
How many
didn't
people
write?
have written curl commands?
Hmm.
To me, it looks like adding this 413 is just making everyone unhappy across the board.
The tag API has universally made everybody happy across the board. Tag listing API. John, I'll put you on deep thoughts about just doing a hard version on that.
I mean, I want a different API entirely.
I mean, that's version 3 now. I'm ready to do that as well.
I want the spec to describe reality. For implementers. I think adding a new error that registries are supposed to do doesn't fix anything because the registries that are doing something slightly different than you expect them to, because it was in the spec before we cut 1.0, aren't going to change to do this error. So, like, that doesn't help anybody. You know? Maybe they will.
We've got at least 3 different groups, and no matter what choice we make, one of the 3 groups is going to be broken.
The only thing I care about is that if there's a link header in the response, clients should follow it. That seems important to have in the spec. Everything else is secondary to me. Like adding that the registry must return an error in certain cases is breaking, right? Because registries that don't do that won't do that.
It's breaking, but intentional because there are people in one of those groups that don't know.
But like
but then it
ends up breaking another group. Is that the current thing that these registries do, which is returning a link header, is way better than returning a 413.
It is better for clients that are aware of it and worse for clients that strictly follow the spec and didn't know that was happening.
I feel like that set is just a small group of people.
It's not anybody that's written a client that's had to deal with enough registries that they've realized they need to work around all those cases, but those clients are not technically OCI clients. They're more real world clients, and anybody that's been trying to follow the spec is who is silently broken.
They're already silently broken because the
That's why
spec is wrong.
That's why I'm trying to make it a noisy broken. I'm trying to say, look, silently broken is not a good thing.
But if we make it a noisy broken, then we're going from some clients are silently broken to previously working clients are now all broken. That seems like a bad thing to me.
We're in the middle of a lot of bad decisions here. Hard version of the tag API. Let's make a new one.
I'm down. You know, it could have been the refers API. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a good solution to this. I like everything in this PR. No, I only like the first 2 lines of this PR. I don't like anything else. But I'm not the king of OCI, so I'll comment on that to that effect.
Yeah, like I saw someone else come off mute at some point there. Maybe it was Tianan. Maybe it was Toddy. Maybe it was Ram. I'm not sure who.
I think I discussed it in one of the meetings. I'm not a maintainer on the distribution spec, so I didn't want to comment on the PR and something that looks semi-official, especially since I am an OCI maintainer, so I get the member badge. But I did comment in this meeting that I think the errors are a bad thing, especially because the spec should document reality, and this is how most registries work. And they're not currently returning errors. And returning errors would break a large number of clients instead of just the small number of bespoke clients that their only interaction with registries is the OCI specification. They never talk to Quay or Docker Hub or distribution, no other implementation.
I mean,
I'm having a hard time picking out that user.
what usually happens is they write the code. They look at the spec, they're like, this is easy, I can implement this. And so they write the code on day one against a registry that's got 20 tags in it. The test all passed, they're all working good, and they don't know they're broken.
Yeah, I would guess that those users aren't actually implementing pagination at all.
Correct.
Not that they're implementing pagination based on an assumption of the number of results that the registry returned.
They can do both.
They could do both, but I would guess that the majority of client authors who fall into this category of I tested on a small bespoke registry that had a small number of tags are not implementing pagination because they wouldn't have run into the issue. They would make their request, they would get back all the tags, they would assume that it's good enough and go on with their day. That's certainly what I would do if I were that client author.
And the problem is they just don't know that they don't realize their code is broken. I don't know a good way to tell them their code is broken and not to tell everybody else that's written stuff that is more aware of the link header out there that theirs is not. So are you going to bring back John's PR at that point? Just put the link header in there, no errors, and good luck to users.
I think the argument about these theoretical clients would be more compelling if we had some examples of clients that behave this way.
It's people that have written curl, and it's people that are querying for version number to put in a CI pipeline script or something like that. They're very ad hoc.
Yeah, and I guess my reaction, being one of those users that does those kind of things all the time, that's my bread and butter, is that I would fix that when the duct tape falls off. When the script has some problem and I notice that it's not getting some update that it should have, for example, that's when I would go, oh, hey, why did this not work? And I'd dig in a little bit and then find, oh, there's a link header that I'm supposed to read for pagination. Maybe there's a better way to solve this problem. Like maybe I should run Crane LS or Regcuttle LS or whatever, instead of
The
curl.
curl's out there, the face of this. Yeah, anything but curl.
Yeah.
I've given a lot of advice for how you use curl against OCI, and it all ends with, no, by the way, you should probably use one of these 15 tools out here. It does it because there are a lot of problems out there that you don't realize you're going to run into.
Yeah, it's not like when we started this thing and there was one tool and it didn't do everything. We've got a lot of tools now.
I like this world. This is a fun world. Said, see with the hand.
So I think we all agree the first two lines which says about the link header are good. We can definitely add that, and that'll solve existing clients who are implementing the link header, but you know, there's nothing official in the OCI. Those two lines will add like an official spec. Now, yes, the other clients who just do a curl and then don't paginate, I don't know what to do with them other than as like was suggested that they will eventually figure it out, kind of.
We either break the curl clients the silent way, or we break all the clients that are aware of the link header the noisy way.
Yeah, the breaking all the clients is gonna be a lot of people are gonna get mad versus like people who are doing curl versus people who do, like, for example, HUD or Docker pull or any of those which follow the proper link header. It's a like disproportionate amount of people who are gonna get angry if we put a error there instead of returning a link header.
Stuck between two bad choices here, but I can at least follow the community on this one. So in that case, I would pull that out. So line 551 goes away. And line 555 would also, I can leave 555 in and reword it to say use the link header. Don't put a limit in there and just use the link header with whatever the registry gives you. And then get rid of the 413 error code down there and get rid of the limit exceeded error code. Is that the direction everybody wants?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And then completely reversion the tag API for V2 with a whole better response that everybody's going to like instead, and then we'll all forget about the V1 of the tag listing at some point. Come on, John, I'm trying to end on a high note here.
I'm ready when you are. Let's do it.
I'm ready. Let's make this thing happen. What do we want in this API? We want the full descriptor. Do we want the ability to
doing it
search?
now?
let's make this happen. Let's
Yeah,
at least
give me
start
a list
designing
of
it.
descriptors, and let's make refers. Also return tags as descriptors or something. You know, let's do it. I want to query the graph. I want untagged manifests somehow. I want tags as full descriptors. Yeah.
If I don't include the idea of putting some kind of search in there, Rom is going to be happy, or Rom will not be happy if I don't have some kind of search in there. So I know people have been asking for how can they search for artifact types,
Grep.
and they've been looking for how they can search on annotations.
Grep. JQ, if you're really fancy.
So would you include the artifact type and annotations in the tag listing response?
If you really want to, yeah. It's fine.
I mean, I knew I was gonna like.
Fine. Seems
Yeah.
fine.
Proper pagination with a link header.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want if I get that.
That's how you end a meeting on a good note. You pitch all the stuff everybody's been begging for way too long.
Mm.
I feel like we're going to hit at least a 1.2 if we put all this in a new fancy API at some point, which I'm not objecting to at all.
Yeah. As much as I hate GraphQL, I feel like somebody should make a GraphQL extension to the API and like prove how bad it is before we even talk about it.
Rom, I think your name was just called.
Yeah, we have a GraphQL extension and Zart registry, and we have been quite happy with it actually. But
Can you
then
like-
again, it's a question of at scale will it perform and all of that stuff. So
I'm not trying to start any fights. I just knew that you had already done it.
Neat.
no, it's not about a fight. Right? So basically, the idea is with GraphQL is you can go across resources, right? So this is pseudo RESTful. So and that is what the true power of search is. Otherwise, you'll have to rip and replace a lot of this stuff, which is not going to happen.
This is neat. I'll play with this. I love it. Did you say auth makes this hard? I imagine. Or maybe you scope it to just a repository and pre-auth it.
You're talking to me, John, about the
Yeah,
GraphQL?
maybe. Yeah, I'm curious, like what the auth model is around this, because
the auth model is exactly the same. So you have a whatever your authorization backend is. So for example, if your auth model says, at least in Zart, so auth is not so you're both the authorization and the authentication, right? So authentication, it's standard, you authenticate, and if you are successful, then you can do the query. In the auth model is the auth-z model is, if you have access to a particular repository, then you get to include those results. Otherwise, those results are excluded. So
yeah, I could get behind this. We need to make tags part of the DAG somehow. You know, decide on how tags are represented in the graph model, and then we don't really need anything else. We just need the GraphQL API. Let's ship it.
yeah, so this is so at least our GraphQL schema started with a very tiny subset and has evolved. It has included things like tag search, SHA search, layer, this, that, CV search, and so on and so forth. So you can add whatever you want there, whatever you want to index and search. So.
Oh, Is it true that GraphQL doesn't do arbitrary recursion? I think I ran into this at some point and realized it was not fit for purpose for OCI.
Example?
If I have a image index that is 10 levels deep of image indexes with leaves, can I query arbitrarily for, like, what if I want to do a depth first traversal of an image index using GraphQL and find like every image that's referenced by that graph? Is that possible, or is it hard
It
coded?
should be possible, but sounds very expensive as a query. So
It was more expensive to do client side. I'll look. I don't expect you to know everything.
I'm
yeah,
already
that's-
imagining things that Quay is not going to implement on their side.
Do you think Quay is going to implement a GraphQL API?
Something tells me they're not. Said, are you from Quay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
Oh
not-
no.
I'm not being mean or anything about this. I just kind of feel like if your concern was like 50 tags, I can't imagine you doing a fully recursive GraphQL query.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can tell you that the current API current API is very basic. So in Quay or in Red Hat, we're looking more and more requirements of search in the OCI model. People want to search annotations, they want to filter by like tags and things like that. So the current API is not made for it. I would welcome if GraphQL can solve that problem.
I know at least for my little Solar Edge project that's using the OCI layout as the backend data store, that arbitrary queries across arbitrary repositories would be challenging because I don't know all the directories and would have to do a recursive directory search.
I think if you want to do this with strictly an OCI layout and not any auxiliary data structures, it's going to be expensive. But you could definitely have an index of your indexes.
I would have to build something outside of OCI layout to track all this.
You could store it in the OCI layout.
No, that's exactly what we've done with Zot, right? So we have a
Yes.
separate index. There's no way, there's no way this is going to scale.
I think hearing there's no way this is going to scale should have everybody running like ECR, Docker Hub, everything else, like showing up with pitchforks at our doorstep.
Why? What?
If we had a non-scaling API, I would imagine that
No, that's
large registries would be upset.
that's an implementation detail, I think. So the requirements are coming from users, right? User says we want this. They don't care how you implement it. We just want this. So
Well, if nothing else, I got a few items on the wish list here. My scroll works. Descriptors, untagged, search in there, and link header pagination. I feel like that's the minimum wish list. If we want to get more complex, maybe.
I want distinct tags by digest. Kind of like refers.
I've heard that one a few times as well. Show me all the responses here that point to this digest.
Yeah.
Now, somebody's going to say they want everything that points to a layer digest.
Oh yeah, you need a graph. But the other thing I wanted as part of refers was like, show me any index that points to this manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Show me any manifest that points to this block. Which is maybe what you were saying and I misunderstood.
Well,
But that-
it's waiting for a layer digest. Same idea there.
Yeah.
Unless
I
I
just
wasn't
want
getting
one
into
hop.
uncompressed layer digest. Oh,
Yeah.
historical tags, yeah.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Even one hop is complicated, right? Because what if you have a platform specific manifest? It's not a layer, it's still a manifest, but it's not a tagged manifest explicitly, even though it is part of a tag or part of many tags.
Yeah, I don't want to go from a manifest to a tag directly through like if I have a manifest, I want to ask like give me everything that points to this, and it may just return an index. And then that index may have a tag pointing to it. So I
So
just want to
maybe-
do one hop.
Maybe tags and indexes.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like we could graft on most of this to the refers API, but then the tags part we'd have to solve kind of separately or figure something out.
Maybe finally reconcile manifests versus blobs.
That would make me so happy.
We'll never get there.
I want a blob mount to manifest.
Me too.
You want to blob mount a manifest?
Yeah. Moving a manifest between two namespaces on the same registry requires pulling the bytes and pushing the bytes, which might be up to 4 megabytes as we've defined. Sorry, mebibytes. Let me be clear.
Yeah, like we can just do another manifest put API. Throw a parameter on the manifest put.
Do a post. Do a post with a from. Easy.
Yeah.
A manifest mount API.
Yeah, why not? I do think everything being blobs would be better. I think that's a misstep. And that's why layout has only a blobs.
It's, for me, it's not the underlying data structure, it's the APIs to query it. And so from the client side, I don't know which of the two APIs to query to get that digest if I don't know the difference of whether it's a manifest or a blob.
Yeah, this kind of loops back to your media types with parameters discussion, doesn't it? Because everybody's code has a switch statement for media types, even though it shouldn't be a switch statement.
Yep.
If only Go had a content type parsing library built into the standard library, we'd all have made better decisions.
Yeah, sure we would. We'd still
I
have
felt
switch
that.
statements, but then we wouldn't have as solid of a justification.
Oh boy. On that note, we did run out the end of the hour here. But I feel like we ended on a high note. I've got a marching orders to try to see if I can come up with something here. I'm sure I'll get halfway through and someone will tell me to make a working group. But until then, I'm just going to see if I can pull this off as a PR and get people to approve it. That whole new API. All right. That's all we got for today. Have a great rest of the week and enjoy if you get out and see it, the eclipse next week. Take care.